What is going on? So, what follows is going to be a podcast that I threw together with my friend Meagen Harriman. And I do mean that it was thrown together very last minute. It was just sort of on a whim. We're super excited. But I really wanted to capture this moment and this conversation with her because she's doing pretty awesome on social media, which is something I want to encourage all of you to take advantage of and do that on video. And she's doing it on all different avenues, including live, which can be a challenge. So I wanted to get her on there and actually talk about some of the challenges that she faces, as well as the highlights and the triumphs and how that all balances out to become part of what you do to promote yourself and your business and everything that goes along with it. And so that being said, I do hope that you enjoy this particular podcast. I do need to get back on track with things because, like I said, on Monday's video, I am definitely very, very far behind. It's been about 2 months and I got to play catch up on a lot of things. And so it's a little bit daunting, but here we are. I'm throwing together this tutorial, or I'm throwing together this intro for this video with the new lighting. I'm really digging it. The lighting looks a lot more elevated from where I was, which makes me even more anxious about putting out the video. But that's just it. You don't want to get too hung up on how things looked in the past. You're constantly improving, and if anything, it's a good contrast. But anyways, that's enough of me ranting. I'm gonna cut it off there, and we're gonna go forward with the podcast. Make sure that you check it out. Make sure that you check out everything that is Meagen Harriman and all that she does, and give your girl some love. And I'm gonna shut up and let you watch and listen to the Echelon broadcast with Meagen Harriman.
All the things.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. And people are like, "Yeah, can you charge less? Like, can you do this for like $300?" And I'm like,
there's so
the
much.
things that I do.
All right.
All right. Let's see.
Are we here?
Yeah, we are here. I don't even know where to begin. It's always awkward with these things at first.
Right.
Yeah. We just had this like long conversation earlier, and you'd think that we'd have this all sorted out, but
You think.
where do I begin? Well, I guess I could do a bit of an introduction. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the first guest for the Echelon broadcast. It's Meagen Harriman.
Oh, well, hello. Oh my gosh.
I really wish that you had like just a shirt that said "Flourish" because I would totally rock
Oh, I know. I'm so excited to like get to that point of merchandise.
that. Yeah, is there like a timeline for the merch?
It's always on my mind. But
Gotcha.
I just,
Well,
always like find this to do and this to do.
this is already starting to shape up like we can go forever. So I'm gonna let you sort of introduce who you are.
Okay.
So you can talk to the camera for that little bit, just kind of like give people a background of where you're from, what you're all about,
Okay.
what you do.
Okay.
Yeah, keep it
I
simple.
feel like I should have that like down, but I change it every
I
time.
don't.
Okay. All right. So my name is Meagen, and I currently work from home. I get to have the privilege of working with women all across the world. It's really exciting to meet women in different countries and states and get to help them create a lifestyle which they continue to flourish into their best selves, whether that be nutrition-based, fitness-based, or just self-love-based. I get to have a big connection with women everywhere. That's what I do daily. I also am huge on social media, and I have a Instagram that I put a lot of work into, a YouTube that I put some information out on, and I get to connect with women through that as well.
So Meagen and I met, what was that, like in November of 2017, maybe? November, December, I want to say. And I was, at the time I was working at a gym, sort of one of the bigger gyms here in Sarasota. And I was just going through the motions of having that as a job and being a personal trainer, and also trying to do the social media and video content creation for the gym. And I happened to run across Meagen. And at the time I was in a bit of a slump. So to say that I was starving for inspiration would be an understatement. And frankly, like, I mean, it's a gym. So I'm just going to be completely honest. The reason why I ended up talking to Meagen was like, who is that girl and all of her friends? And it was just like, well, I work here. I can't just be a weirdo and like drift around the gym all the time. So it was like, I just have to go and like say something, at least make the introduction. And so that's when I talked to you, and I think you were with Kayla at the time, because you guys are like you're like a team. Like,
Yeah, a little duo.
Yeah. So they're a pair, and it was hard to miss these two. Because, like, well, at the time, you were rocking some shorts and you were really intense, and I think you had a cap on, and you were really, like, focused on training.
Yeah.
And so, for me, it was like, well, she seems very intimidating. Like, Kayla was just, like, she was more, like, she was not as intimidating at the time.
It's so funny you say that.
Which is a big contrast, because now that I've come to know you, you're so, like, open and so vibrant as a personality.
Thank you.
And it's amazing, and that's actually one of the things that it wasn't until I actually like did the whole like, do you have an Instagram sort of a thing, where it was like I saw your Instagram, and my shift ended and I took off, and I was like on this high because they were like really cool, and then I met you and Kayla, and there was someone else, Ashley
Possibly.
And I was like super pumped, and then I had to go, and I was looking at your stuff in my truck, and I just had it playing in my truck as I was driving away, and I literally had to stop, turn around, and come back into the gym. It was like, oh my God, like, you're so freaking amazing. This was rare for Sarasota, Florida. This was rare for where I was, and especially for where I was just in my life at the time, to see someone like you in that space actually doing something more than just like tights and butt shots, which is a thing.
Gym selfie every day.
Yeah, you can't get away from it. It's like an Instagram thing.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, but I wanted to bring you on because, as you may know or may not know, because we haven't really paid attention to each other because we're so focused on what we're trying to do, I've been focusing a lot on doing this for corporate people.
Yeah.
And what stands out to me with what you're doing is that you're presenting yourself very openly and being very, very vulnerable on social media, which can be really tricky, especially if you're working in a corporate setting. But she has a legitimate business.
Yeah.
She's making a living off of that business, which we can get to, and her like decision, the struggle to make the decision to make the leap into that.
Yes.
But she's been doing it, and I refer to you and my other friend like as a Northern Star, because I look at you and it's like you're doing it. It's easy to look at social media and to go like, oh, I aspire to be like this person, or like this guy looks so cool, that guy looks so amazing with what they're doing with their brand and all this stuff. But to actually have someone doing it and to be in the trenches day to day, and we just had a conversation about this, to deal with all the challenges involved in that in your personal life and even professionally is even more amazing, because then we can riff off of each other.
Exactly.
Which this makes me sad sometimes, because I'm here, she's in her little bubble, I'm in my little bubble, and it's like we don't really get a chance to talk to anyone.
Yeah, exactly.
We're like hermits.
Kind of have to like be in our own bubbles, but then know when we should come together and join those bubbles.
Oh, I know.
Scheduling that in.
I know, which is, again, like, I'm so honored to have you here. I'm so honored to have you even like sit in this. You guys will see how this actually all looks, but it's such a cramped little space. It looks so spacious in the broadcast and all that stuff. But hey, it works out. It's like this rickety little ottoman thing. Yeah, well, we're making it work.
That's right.
So you came here from, it was Maine. Right?
Yep, came from Maine, little small town. I never remember the number of people, but it's like, so Sarasota is made up of all kinds of little communities. My little community has like triple the amount of people from my hometown. Okay, so like I am so, this is huge to me. Everyone else is like, this is such a small town. It's huge. So yeah, little small town in Maine, and I moved here 3 years ago now.
Right about the same, almost the same time as when I moved here.
Yeah.
And it flew by so fast.
I know it does.
Yeah. And you moved here because I think what you told me was you were kind of getting away from that place.
I just like knew that I didn't want to be there forever. I didn't know where I wanted to go. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I didn't really know social media and influencing was a career. I just knew like, it'd be cool to kind of grow my platform. I don't know. And I wanted more exposure in the nutrition world, which is originally what I studied and had my profession in. And then somebody I knew was moving here, so I came with her.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you made a leap to Sarasota, Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Random.
you said it was a big town.
Yeah, it was huge to me. I'd never been here before, never even heard of it, and I was like, sure, she's going, I'll go.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, I had a few visits, and it was actually a step to something lower for me because I was coming from Los Angeles.
Right.
So I totally understand sort of from the other side what it's like to be going to an actual small town. And I do feel that sometimes because, especially for the gym that we were at, it's drama gets around.
Oh, yeah.
It's amazing.
That's maybe why I look so intense, is I'm in my own world. I don't care about what everyone else is doing.
Yeah, but that's what we have to do in order to achieve the things that we're trying to achieve. Is just to block out all of the, I guess you can say, the normal stuff in the day to day, which can make us seem sort of like, in your case, you don't have a resting bitch face, but I would say that you were definitely.
I think now that I have prep. I do.
No, you don't. People definitely, there are definitely people who just have like that classic resting bitch face.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
You were just like, I'm focused. I'm in the zone. Don't talk to me.
Good to know.
I'm working on my thing. But I'm glad that we somehow met in that somehow in the middle of all this craziness and this adventure, we somehow ended up meeting, because I feel like I was coming from such a big place. I was coming from, I need to like look over here. I'm going to keep that.
Okay.
We're keeping all of that. I'm it's like I need to take my own advice. So I was coming from such a big place that it was hard for me to accept that everyone here was just cool with just being here.
Yeah.
Like they were just like, this is my nice little town. I'm going to bitch about it. I hate the small, Sarasota sucks. It's a dead end. But no one ever made the effort to get out. Was that sort of the experience that you had coming from Maine?
Nobody gets out of our, yeah. Nobody really leaves, and then they all complain about it. But
just do something about it.
Yeah, you just gotta go. And then people who feel like stuck, they're like, well, I can't move because of this or that. Like, you can move. Yeah. You are mobile. You're able. There are opportunities at every single corner. It just is scary. So scary to do it, but you do it.
And besides that one friend, you didn't know anybody?
Nope.
Yeah.
Didn't know anyone. And then her and I mean, we're still friends, but we're just so different. And she moved back up, and I was still here.
Wow. Yeah. It just kind of, the pace of it probably just kind of was overwhelming after a while.
Yeah. She moved back up to smaller town.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was like, it's too much. So at what point, and I think Matt is actually really important for the story, like at what point did you actually end up meeting Matt and getting involved with Matt?
I actually met Matthew the weekend that I moved here. So it was like a week of me living here, and then I met him at the gym that weekend, and I did not want anything to do with him for 3 months. I was just like, I moved here to like be my own person, to learn and experience, and I didn't want to commit to anything. So he was very persistent though, and he just we are gonna be together. Eventually, like 3 months into it, I was like, okay, we can date. Yeah. So
that's fine.
Yep.
If you insist.
If we have to.
Yeah. And I think that's actually very important especially for someone having moved to a place that you're not familiar with, because you do have a support system. And can you kind of just talk about how critical Matt has been? Because we did say that Matt is more focused on just like cultivating his space and his time here. He's not really setting his sights on anything bigger necessarily. Right. But yeah,
he loves his career. He is a police officer, and he does such a good job in his line of work. He loves his small little group of friends. He wants to keep everything small. He loves our little house. He loves our quaint and comfort. He definitely loves comfort. And I am totally different. I'm like wanderlust to the third degree. Like, like I want to go. And even though I have settled down here and I can see that I'm going to stay here because that's what he wants, my spirit like is still everywhere. And I'm okay with I'm physically here, but I'm not always here.
No, I totally agree with you. Los Angeles was fun. It's got a lot of things to offer, but it's also very distracting if you're trying to focus on the one thing, and it almost renders a lot of that useless and almost a block to your progress, because if you have to spend an hour in traffic just to go one direction, it's funny to me that people here are like, season is horrible, I can't get anywhere. Have you ever been to Los Angeles?
Yeah, exactly.
You can't get anywhere at all. And you just like you just accept your fate and sit in traffic. It's so I sort of had the opposite of that story, and this is by no means am I disparaging my ex, but in our conversation, I realized that what I was actually looking for, or what I didn't understand, was that her goals, though she aspired for something greater, weren't necessarily as big as what I want to achieve. I was looking at Steve Jobs and people like Elon Musk and saying, wow, talk about wanderlust. Like, there's so much human potential that we can tap into, so much that we can do. And I think you just get a feel for that, especially in training. Yeah. Because you're like, oh, if I push past the pain and past the discomfort, I can like become a completely different person. Exactly. And you've become, even in the time that we've known each other, not only have you had successes in your own business, and it's just multiplied again and again and again, but now you're actually doing a competition. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. I am I think 10 weeks away from my first bikini competition, and I wanted to do it for about 2 years prior to this, and I did attempt prep one time, but I wasn't in a good space mentally about who I was. I wasn't happy with my body at the time, so I felt like I was doing it for the wrong reasons, and I still struggled with binge eating really bad at that time, so that really affected my results and my mindset, so I stopped quickly. Gratefully, I recognize that. And so now I'm at a place where I feel much better about it, and I'm doing this competition for the mindset work. I'm doing this competition for the education and the experience. By no means am I doing it for a body transformation. I think that's great to see all these changes, but ultimately I just want to be the best person mentally, emotionally, and I want to be able to share my experience with people. So doing prep for, I feel like, the greater good and being able to share it with others rather than just, get shredded. I don't really care.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. One of the hardest things for me to do, and I knew that this was coming. I've been listening to some other powerlifters before who said, just any competition, if it's driven by some big chip on your shoulder, at some point, it's almost like you can't hear it anymore. Because the motivation behind it is just so exhausting. For me, it was about punishing my body. Yeah. And so when you're coming from that place, it'll take you so far. And I feel like if you're in an environment where you're constantly being punished, having something to direct that energy can be good. But as soon as that drifts away, and in my case, traumatic as my separation was, it did create a lot of space for me to kind of go, I don't need to hurt myself. Right. I don't need to prove anything to anyone to say that I'm strong. And so it's been actually challenging for me to go more consistently in the gym. For me, like, now my focus has shifted into building Echelon, and it's got that same drive of how big can I get this? How can I really like push and grow this? But in a way where it's not like I need to prove anything to my parents. I don't need to prove anything to myself. It's more, how can I, like you said, do it for the greater good. And it's interesting to find the greater good is, for me, it's about elevating your story is what I say the tagline for the business is, because it's about someone else's success rather than my own.
Right. Yes, 100%.
And you've been able to do that a lot with, what do we call it now? Is it Flourish Your Mega? Or
Flourish Your Mega.
That's the brand.
That's my brand, is Flourish Your Mega. And then, I have programs within that, but Flourish Your Mega is my brand, what I provide. Because I really, truly believe that we all are constantly flourishing through any storm that we weather or any great, beautiful, sunny day. It sounds so corny, but it's definitely something that I strongly believe in. Yeah. And just honestly, the word flourish means a lot to me. And I'm currently running a 6-week challenge that is fitness, nutrition, and self-love based. And the other day, one of the girls posted in our group was like, I just find myself using the word flourish every single day, and everyone around me is starting to catch on to it, and I'm hearing it everywhere. And that makes me so happy, because I really think it's a strong, encouraging word.
It is. But before I move on to that, I want to touch on something that you said about flourishing in general and being like a flower in the storm. I think you don't necessarily have to feel that's corny, because even if Tupac is talking about roses growing out of the concrete, I think you're set. You've got some street cred there.
That's true.
But as far as flourish, actually, it's funny. Like this morning, I was thinking about the word itself, and this was on the back of having seen another post from a friend of mine who said something about the things that you did to survive have served you there. It's now time for you to thrive, and you need to let go. You need to stop surviving and start thriving.
Yes, yeah.
And I love how you're talking about flourishing and developing and growing, because it's a different mindset than saying, I'm just going to crush and I'm going to be strong and I'm going to defeat or conquer the world.
Right.
I think that inevitably will come as a result of the work that you put in. Like we were talking about Steve Jobs and how, like, you can't escape this. Like, for all the stories behind Steve Jobs and what he did as a person, like, you could have been a jerk or whatever, you just can't escape this.
It's everywhere.
He's everywhere. And so with what you're creating, what excites me most is the legacy. And this is the self-serving part. It's the legacy that you're building.
Right.
It's that you from small town Maine and small town Sarasota, Florida. Where's Sarasota, Florida? Have now touched the lives of thousands.
Yeah.
Are we there?
Yeah.
That's nuts.
I know.
That's scary and nuts. And we'll talk about the scary side of that here in a second too. It's got some.
I
It's got
still
some
get so
pitfalls.
scared.
Because you're really putting yourself out there, but I think it gives people permission to really bring themselves out.
I agree. Yeah. They're
And
like, oh, I can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not easy, especially for women. And I feel that I really have to pay attention to your work and what you do, because I have a daughter, and I just know that a lot of the pitfalls of being a girl and having to maintain an image are going to be a lot of the same things that she's going to have to tackle.
Right.
And then even now, as old as my ex is, she's not old. She's just older than I am. So she's still beautiful, by the way. It's still a challenge for her for where she is.
Yeah.
And so I have to consider this for my daughter. Like, I really want to put her in jiu-jitsu because I know that she's going to have to tackle a world that's going to be like, oh, you're a girl, whatever.
Yep.
And she needs to, I think I've been pretty good at being just stubborn and pushing. And yet and you've done the same. Like you said, you bucked the trend of, small town Maine, screw this. I'm going to go move. Sarasota, no, screw this. I want something so much bigger.
Exactly.
And yet, you had 12 comments the other day about your steroid
anatomy.
penis. I'm just going to cut straight to the point. She has a penis, folks. But you don't. But can you just kind of explain a little bit backstory on that and what went down?
So I made a transformation post, and I was in a bikini in both of them. And just my second one was very shiny bikini. Apparently, I had no idea. I didn't even look at that. But people continue to comment like, oh, how did you grow a penis from your transformation? And how did that happen? Must be on steroids. And all these comments that just like, they kind of dug deep, like kind of hit me. And at the end of the day, like I had, 200 comments and 20 of them were negative. Like it's hard to focus on the positive, but there's so many more positives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And I think managing that, so biologically, I think we're prone to actually pay attention, like 5 times more prone to pay attention than negative.
100%.
Because that's how we survived as a species, was to pay attention to the negative things and be keenly aware of them. So the positives are nice, but we take them for granted.
We do, yeah.
And you said that you have a practice of actually writing down the positive comments and reminding yourself and being grateful for those things.
The ones that really stick to me, the ones that really like hit me hard. I try to keep track of them. I try to, write down exactly what was said, and that way when I'm constantly getting some of these negatives, because they come in
It's only
come in
20
waves.
out of 200.
They come in waves, though. It's like a week of negative. And so I just go back to that positivity, and I'm like, okay, I really have a greater good here. I'm serving more people than just those negative people.
So, I mean, that comes, and I think that's important because, again, like the focus of this broadcast and just Echelon is for corporate. And yet, I feel like building your brand and really putting yourself out there is what is ultimately going to draw in consistent business for people. And that's what you're doing, is you're drawing in consistent business with people who are dedicated and loyal to you. So with that, and with the haters, I guess you could say, are they necessarily clients of yours, or are they just people who are just passing by and making a comment?
They're just passing by.
See?
I've never even seen them. I've never seen their accounts. Like, the only time they want to say something is when it's negative. So.
And that's the crazy thing. That's because I know that's a big concern for people, especially jumping into this space. But I have come to appreciate social media because it's like, as Uncle Gary likes to say, it's like the small town again. It's that experience of living in a small town, which is really funny, where everyone knows your business.
Mm-hmm.
And if you put yourself out there, people are going to talk smack, even in a town of like 100 people, you get maybe like in this case, 2 people are talking smack, but it's such a small concentration of people.
Right.
It feels like the world. And even at 20 negative comments versus 200 awesome comments, it feels like the world.
Yeah, it's still.
And it crushes you.
Yes, definitely.
And yet you've just managed to deal with it by saying, okay, this is just part of the experience.
Yeah.
You just go through it.
I think a big thing that's helped me overcome the negative comments is to, one, be able to voice them openly to select few people who I feel very comfortable with, and I can kind of complain for a little bit, have my pity party, but not blast them at the same time. So, my 50,000 people aren't seeing it.
Yeah.
And finding that balance of finding my comfort, talking it and speaking my truth to them, and then also telling people what is positive about that negativity. So, like, showing people that even though I got that negative comment 20 something times, like, it's fine because I know my truth. I know what I am and what I'm capable of, and I have so much more that's, I can grow and learn from instead of that.
So I think that's also another one of those very important points where if you're in business, your truth is your practice. So if you're like, I don't know, if you're an esthetician, it could be very easy for people to target you and be like, oh, you're feeding into superficiality because you're an esthetician, or you do Botox injections for people. But it's like, what kind of results are you producing for people?
Exactly.
Are they leaving your clinic happy? And really, those are the opinions that matter the most, are the people that you're serving and you're doing good for. And it's funny that you said at this point hundreds if not thousands of people that you're serving, and yet someone from nowhere can dig into your heart and soul and it just pull your strings. It's almost unfair, but it's just part of life.
Yeah.
And I think people just have to embrace that in general.
I think so too.
because don't get me wrong, your post earlier this morning was something about you were just having a discussion about someone's weight. I think that's what it was, right?
Yeah, mine.
Yeah. And someone came on and was like, what did they say? You have no right to talk about this? Yeah,
it was another comparison picture, and it was really about the mental transformation I had. And it was saying that I went from binging and shamefulness to where I am now of nourishment and pridefulness. And somebody commented, you weren't obese before. You really have no right to talk about that. And I had to very politely, respond. I mean, obviously, first, my reaction was excuse me? You don't know me. That's what I thought.
You don't know how fat I was.
Excuse me, you don't know. But I had to calmly, explain to them, it's about the mental transformation. Thanks for your input. I'm not saying that I was obese by any means. It is seriously, you don't know what goes on in somebody's mind and how it affects their life. And there's such a deeper meaning to this, and that's what I provide for people. Yeah. Yeah. And that's another critical piece to the whole content creation thing, I feel, too, is that you're, again, as Uncle Gary likes to say, you're documenting rather than creating. And I'm sort of stuck in a weird place where I have to create because my content has to appeal to a certain audience because I'm presenting myself as a videographer. So it's got to be on point. I wish the only thing I had to do was wear tights and pose. It doesn't work in this space particularly. Right. But the critical thing about that is just understanding that you're going to have to deal with it. And as you go through the process of documenting, it's just showing the process. And there are ups and downs. And it's a challenge for people like us. You said this earlier, to come off genuine, but at the same time, still be presentable. Right. Yeah.
And I think that's a challenge for most business owners because they obviously, I work with people who are realtors, and some of them are also, some people who are lawyers, and people who work with the elderly. And if they're older, working with an older population, even if in private,
Yeah.
like they curse and they want to talk about the beers that they drink and all that stuff, it's hard to do that and present that part of themselves without the fear that they might lose some potential clientele.
Yeah.
But I think if anything, like you've only brought in really consistent quality people into your life.
That is true. Yeah. I think the big thing is, honestly, I feel like I have such a, what's the word I'm looking for? Advantage, I guess, that my business is about being real. Like, that's pretty much what my business is.
So
Is
good.
like, it is embracing your real, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah.
And all seasons of your realness, because your realness is going to change as you grow and evolve yourself, as you flourish. I think that I actually have that advantage. I would kind of find it more difficult if I was more of a corporate
If you're
business.
more buttoned down,
Yeah.
like proper.
Yeah.
But I think for the consistency of a business, I can't imagine doing echelon for what? Like, let's imagine 20 years, the average career. And just maintaining that image, that would feel so stifling after a while.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to try to be so perfect, on point. But then when I started showing my workouts that kind of failed, or like the days that I had really bad body image days, even though I am a self-love person and I have grown and evolved to love my body at all stages, being real and being like, it's okay to not have a day that you're perfect. That's okay.
Yeah.
And I think maybe in corporate, a way you could like do that is, explaining through more of a specific thing.
Well, it's just embracing the challenges,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, any business, like for example, if we were going through the midst of like 2008 and the recession, talking about your experiences through that and how you pushed through speaks to your story more.
Right. Yeah.
And I think like that's more relatable when people can say, wow, like, I don't know, let's imagine you were more buttoned down and you were a mortgage broker. And it's like, well, it's 2008, the market sucks, and I'm struggling to get work.
Right.
But if people can go back into your old footage and be like, wow, like you really pushed through all these challenges, and Matt, like I would feel a greater sense of trust working with you.
Trust is
if I
huge for
saw that, like, wow, you actually are a genuine human being. You went through a lot of the same challenges that I did, and you still maintained your business regardless of that. And you took some losses, you took some hits, but you managed to do it.
Right.
And I think those elements, those human elements of like the challenge and then overcoming them and then coming out the other end intact, are actually the parts that are probably the most crucial on social media. And I think you can speak to this because it's probably hard to really present that if the image that you put out a lot of times, and this is particularly true in the fitness space, is just really nice workout outfits and like your perfect reps. But you have hacked that by presenting it to be more of a like being real sort of a deal.
100%. Yeah. Letting them know that even like the biggest fitness enthusiast out there, the girl that just like is on the cover of every magazine, she failed. Like, she failed so many times. Not that I'm comparing myself to that girl, but you know what I mean? Like, everybody fails. And everyone can relate to that because everybody wants to be like, oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay that I failed.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think it's just humanity is really I feel like it's hard to quantify humanity. Uh-oh, what happened here? Pause. What happened? Okay. Awesome. We gotta pause. I'm holding the thought in my mind
Okay.
of where we are. Just part of the challenge. And then we just keep moving forward.
That's exactly right.
You need a pee?
No.
Okay, good.
Surprisingly.
Bladder is still good. Awesome. Cool.
We're good now?
Well, I mean, this is just part of the challenge. I mean, like, what do I go over this? All right. Well, we got cut off for a second.
Back.
But we got a lot of the audio, which is good. So then we could just put like a static image in that little bit that we lost. But I mean, that's just part of the challenge. Right. Sometimes life presents you with things like it seemed like everything was set up, and yet there are little pieces that I overlooked, like the battery for the backup camera wasn't set up, and the memory card wasn't set up. But you keep pressing forward, right. And I think as long as maybe because I'm a guy, like I need things to be like super simplistic. So I need something like cliches like speak your truth are great cliches. Yeah. Because they speak to a broad audience, and maybe it'll click for some people, but then for people like me, sometimes it's like, what does that mean? And I have to dig down into it. So sometimes for me, like speaking your truth isn't necessarily speaking your truth as much as it is, like I said, just a consistency in your effort. Right. So going back to that example of like a mortgage person, it's like if life punches you in the face and you get up anyways and keep going, it's like it doesn't matter what the criticism is. It doesn't matter what life's challenges that are presented before me are. I'm going to keep going. Right. Exactly. How do you keep going?
I always feel like angry almost with myself when I say this, but you just do. Like, that's not the answer anybody wants. I
get it, though.
But once you just do, you're like, oh, wow, that's all I had to do. Like, this is a silly, small example, but last night I was exhausted, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to get work done. I'm so tired, even though I had scheduled my work to be at later in the evening. I was so tired, I can't do it. And I was sat on the couch and pitied myself for a good hour. And then I said, just do it. So I got my butt up, and I went for like a 20-minute walk. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I did that. I did one thing. Now I can do 10 more. Like, do one thing at a time. Just do it. Yeah. Like, oh, it's so hard to hear that. And sometimes I wish there was like a secret that I could be like, actually, if you just do this little spell, you'll get right through it. But
that's part of what I want to figure out as well, is to dispel the spell. Again, because I'm such a guy, I need things broken down. Like I remember as a kid, I used to take apart my toy cars. I'm like, oh, that's how that works. So things like language is fascinating to me because it can be so powerful, but at the same time, it can be so misleading.
Exactly. Yeah.
It can be so confusing, but it's just do it is like, it's like when a guy talks to a guy and it's like, how do you talk to girls? And it's like, just be cool. What does that even mean? And that was actually something I struggled with for the longest time until I actually took this like 5-year journey of discovering just be cool, which was literally just speaking my truth. Yeah. Which can be adaptable. It can be adaptable because your truth will attract a certain kind of person, and that may not be the kind of people you want to draw into you for the long term. Right. And this matters for your personal life, and this matters for your business. So that sort of discovery over the 5 years was something I needed to do in order to understand, okay, what is behind just be yourself? What is behind, and I think I've scratched the surface for what just do means. It's like I'm around some business professionals on Wednesday mornings, and they just do. Yeah. And I could never get behind just being a really good plumber. Like, it's plumbing. But the people that I work with have the same passion that you talk about. Right. They just do. They just get up and they go and like do plumbing. Like, okay, like go fix pipes. That's cool. Or like I work with elderly people, or I'm a lawyer. Like I can't do that. Like I can't. Like I'm scratching my brain. Like that would be really boring to sit at a desk all day.
What they love.
But they do it.
Yeah.
And does it just feed on itself? Just kind of perpetually keeps.
I mean, momentum definitely is a thing, but I also think that just recognizing your blocks and your fears and taking messy action is better than no action.
That's a really good point.
So it's something that I really struggle with because, like, my website wasn't perfect. My social media, that picture wasn't exactly how I wanted. Like, oh my gosh, the way I provide plans has evolved so much. I kind of feel bad for my very first client. I'm like, that was so bad. But you know what happened is I made a personal connection with them still. It didn't matter that it wasn't a perfect set plan. It was how I impacted their life that the very first client I ever had still talks me up like none other, and it's still like refers me to other people. And I honestly look at her plan and I'm like, ew, that was so bad. But she loved it because it was about how I just did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the connection and it was the heart behind it.
Oh, tell me. I mean, trust me, like, it's crippling for me to look back on the videos that I used to do and, like, how was this passable? Like, how did anyone decide to pay me for this? Why did anyone ever, like, let me release this to the world?
It clicked with someone, though.
I know, somehow it clicked. And that's the thing that actually gives me faith to just keep going, is I've been really good at I'm just going to go with the messy action.
Mm-hmm.
And to go back to that 5 years of discovery of just being cool and it was really talking to girls, to be honest, because you want to present yourself in the best light.
Right.
Because, you know, you grow up and your mom's like, you got to make sure your hair is done right and make sure you're dressed nice and you say the right things.
Yeah.
But it's like with anything, you can't, unless that's who you are, it's hard to present that every day.
Yeah.
And imagine having a relationship with that person and trying to maintain the facade for years.
Yes.
And I think we've come to a place where social media has sort of become a reflection of genuine relationships where you have to be you. Mm-hmm. Play it up every now and then. And we'll get to why it was hard for you to even get to this place because you had to present yourself in a certain light.
Right.
But then after you get them into your world, you can slowly, or as quickly as you want, reveal who you are. And if they decide that they want to stay, then they can stay. And if not, they're more than welcome to leave.
Exactly. And that's okay if they leave. I honestly was so worried about my numbers. I was, even though I said don't worry about it, I still was secretly like a little worried about it. But it's okay because at the end of the day, I don't want the negative comments. They're going to come, but I don't want that. I want the people who are like, yeah, girl, you got this. Like every single post. That's what I want. I'd rather have 10 amazing, thought-provoking comments than, 30 that were like here or there that don't really care.
Yeah. So as far as building your business, I remember when you were making the leap. You were leaving like a real job.
Yeah.
And you were like, I don't know if I want to do this. And I was so pumped for you because it was like, for the first time in a long, long time, I was seeing someone actually on the verge of doing this on their own. And you were going to do a booty product.
Yeah.
Which you weren't too excited about.
No.
Because you didn't want to sell out.
I really didn't want to at all. I was like, every girl is doing her booty guide. Every single one. And truthfully, there's no secret. Like, what am I going to provide that so-and-so didn't provide? But at the end of the day, it's something that captures somebody's attention. They want what you got, and then you make the connection with them through that.
Yeah.
So many girls who started my booty guides now continue on with my self-love guides. And at the end of every single guide, every single challenge, the feedback I get is, yes, I love my transformation, it's great, but my self-love, like, is huge. And it's what I provided for them mentally and emotionally is so much stronger.
Would you consider that part of your core offering?
100%.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. That's
and
awesome.
I'm starting to get to a great transition point, which I love. I make girls do an application before I actually take them on as one-on-one clients. And one of the questions is, what is their ultimate goal? And then I give them like examples and everything. Mm-hmm. And if a girl says, I want to be this size or whatever, I kindly decline them. Or I explain to them why that's not my ultimate client. And but I am getting to a point now where every single application is, I'm ready to feel self-love. I'm ready to look in the mirror and love exactly who I am and what I see on the inside and outside. And
that's beautiful.
It's so exciting to have every single application say that. I'm like, yes. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that definitely, even the excitement that you were pushing out there at the end, definitely speaks to that being part of your core of what you're trying to do. And I'm gonna wrap it up here.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna speak to the camera a little bit.
Okay.
If that's okay. So to wrap this up, again, like this is focused on creating branding for businesses. And so with what Meagen was saying is that you have to bring people into your world first. And part of that reluctance at the beginning when we were having those conversations about jumping ship from her job and then creating this program was because she was having to present herself in a certain light, which was fairly common in that space. But what I kept saying was, and I don't want to, like, I may not have been the only person in your sphere of influence that said this, was what you do as bait, I guess you could say, to draw people into your ecosystem is just that. And what you do down the road that is part of your competence, your core competence, and the thing that you do that is your truth ultimately will shine through. And that's what you did.
Yeah.
So if you happen to be a realtor, a mortgage person, or a dentist person, or a lawyer, it's ultimately your core competences, the heart of what you're really trying to do, that's going to feed the people that are going to want to be in that environment in your ecosystem. And there are, if you want to look into this a little bit deeper, you can go and check out Gary Vaynerchuk's. I keep referring to him as Uncle Gary. You can look at his book Crushing It, because there are examples of people who are dentists who do like shows and skits on social platforms like Snapchat. But that is all to draw people into your world. What you decide to do with that attention is solely yours. And I think that's part of the reason why I really wanted to bring Meagen on, is because you've really owned that attention. You've taken something that most people would see as vapid and superficial and shallow because it's Instagram, and that's your pillar. That's where you live. And you're now. I'm excited because you're starting to break into. I saw you've been doing a lot of live on Facebook.
Yeah,
and
trying.
I mean, it's a challenge.
It is.
But even here, like as you've created the success in one space, and now you're breaking into it.
Right.
I would say that if Meagen is doing this and even she's experiencing those challenges, do the same thing for yourselves if you happen to be in that space. Play around with each of these platforms. See what fits you best. See where you're drawing a lot of attention, but don't dismiss or disregard any of it, because you don't know where people will come in and actually get involved in what you do. And I could keep riffing on this all day because I'm like super pumped on all this stuff. But just to wrap, where can people find you if they wanted to either take on if they need help with their butt, or if they need help to like just draw out the self-love in themselves?
Honestly, my Instagram is my number one. I mean, and my Instagram has links to everything else within that. So it's going to be the place where you can find my workouts, nutrition, and my self-love.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And are you doing anything massive coming up? Are you doing any programs or anything like that? What have you got going on?
I've got my head down on my clients that I have right now, and just really, I don't want to say perfecting because it's always evolving, but really focusing in on the quality that I can provide for them right now. So honestly, my focus is right where I want it to be. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that pretty much sums up everything that we need or would like to talk about. I mean, we can talk about so much more, and I'd love to have you on here as you get more success. But I look at her numbers, and sometimes I think, God, I'm never going to be able to like reach out to Meagen because she's getting so busy. I hope not. Like, I definitely love riffing.
Forget.
Yeah. Don't forget the little people, but I definitely love riffing with you, and it feels good to not feel so isolated.
Exactly.
In our own little bubbles.
The same wavelengths here.
But we're definitely wrapping it up. It's starting to get hot in here because I had to kill the AC. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so glad that we finally got to do this.
Me too.
It's been a long, long time.
I know.
It's a big shift from the gym where we first started.
Exactly.
We'll get to doing that more.
Yeah, have to get there too.
And now we're building up China. That's where I started out. I don't even know what weights are anymore. Man, thank you so much. If you like this, by all means, go ahead and make sure that you give it a thumbs up. Go check out Meagen and all that she does. If you need some help with either flourishing your booty or flourishing your mega and like bringing out the self-love in you, go ahead and check out everything that she's doing on her Instagram. But she is doing a push into Facebook, so give her some love there. I would say if you have any comments, thoughts, suggestions, obviously go ahead and put those down in the comments below, wherever that happens to be, and subscribe to stuff like this. And I love the energy of doing something like this with someone else. So I'm going to do more of this, and hopefully down the road, I'm really excited at the prospect of doing this in a much bigger space. So let's just keep pushing forward. I'm going to keep speaking my truth and keep working on it and just plowing forward. Thanks so much for checking this out. It's been an absolute honor to have you on.
Thank you.
I'm going to do more like this
Yes.
with you and people like you, so I can help people like them to flourish their megas.